Hi, Alex.
Hey, how are you?
Doing well. I'm always excited to chat with a chef on here. I know that there's kind of like a lot of crossover between front of house and back of house as far as like these sort of stories are told, but sometimes the upbringing of somebody's kind of like chef career is different as far as how the drinking self is lived throughout kind of like career performance than it is with the bartender who's kind of always surrounded by the bottles. But since I had a more of a bartender background, I'm always interested to kind of hear from chefs of what their perspective is on kind of like the drinking culture, kind of behind the scenes and the things that they can do to kind of like make that difference moving forward. So I really appreciate you taking the time to come on here and share your story and chat with me.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, thanks for the time.
So how did you get into hospitality? Where did your story start?
Uh, I mean, it kind of like stemmed from I was like a street performer for a number of years, just like a musician, and the money's not always great or consistent, so you tend to uh, look for ways to supplement that. So started washing dishes, just like a little restaurant, and then day by day, like another task gets added to you, and another task, and something else, and I really started to like it, and so kind of stuck with it and worked from there. I guess up the ranks, but it all kind of just stemmed from wanting to just be financially a little bit more stable than I was making music.
For sure. What did you like about it?
It's very immediate gratification. Like it's very like I can it's tangible, and I can see, like, I mean, even with like washing dishes, right? It's a pile of stuff, and then 15, 20 minutes later it's clean, it's like polished, everything looks nice, and everything is set up for that. I think that's what really kind of got me into it first, is it was very gratifying to kind of be able to just see change visibly. Um, it might be like an ADHD thing, it might be something like that, but it really kind of stuck with me as something satisfying in that regard.
Yeah, I also have ADHD, so I can relate to that.
Yeah.
So if you started as a street performer, did you see any crossover of as far as, the way to expend creativity?
In some ways, yeah. I think that, like, you tend to. I was quite young when I was doing that, from like before I was 18, and so I'd never really had like a job before that. And so there's definitely some crossover in terms of like being flexible and being able to kind of learn things on the spot and being able to roll with the punches, so to speak. I think that's what maybe made the transition a little bit easier for me, to get into it more. But that was, God, 12 years ago now.
What did guidance look like into the position? Did you have like mentors that you followed or folks that you looked up to that you kind of wanted to mirror in any regard?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, when I kind of stepped up from like washing dishes and started, line cooking and things like that, I was surrounded by, or tried to surround myself, obviously, with people who know a lot more than me and are willing to teach, which is not always easy to find. Obviously, there's people that are good, and there's people that are really good that will like share that knowledge with you. Um, but I tried to surround myself as much as I could, whether it was in Georgia with like Todd Schaefer at Abel Brown and Jeremy Miller at Champions Retreat, and then I moved to New York, and you're constantly in that biome of people that are better than you. I think it's like a really helpful tool, and so for me, it was always just try to absorb and be a sponge for all of that. Um, I think it really kind of helped me a lot in terms of rapid growth.
How did you handle stress?
Um, at first you just, I don't know, I guess you kind of like bury yourself into it, and it's like the whole like embrace the suck kind of thing, and you can either like get out, or you can just kind of dig deeper and try to go further and try to better yourself. So my initial reaction when I was younger was obviously just just keep like cranking, just work longer, work better, work cleaner and smarter. That was always like the initial kind of option for me. And then, obviously when you get into the industry and you surround yourself by like what we call like industry veterans and the guys that have been doing it for 20, 30, 40 years, there's like a very quick pipeline to like other forms of stress relief. I'd love to say that it was like a really healthy thing of being like, oh, I got into like co-ed sports, or I got really into music again or something like that. But the initial and quick and easy stress relief was obviously just like go out to the bar with people after the shift, or just have a couple shift drinks at the end of it. And for a long time, obviously that's like kind of what it was for me.
Was there a time where that kind of started to weigh on you?
Yeah, I mean, there was when I got like my first like management role, I was like horribly under-equipped and like undertrained, and I was sleeping at the restaurant, which is no longer around, but I was like sleeping at the restaurant in the middle of Williamsburg, and it just became a thing where like my whole cycle was, go to work 16 hours, go out in the neighborhood, go to the bars around there. I think I did it under the guise of like networking and trying to, get to know people in the area and stuff. But, it very quickly becomes like, wow, I haven't like gone home to my apartment for a week and a half. It just got to the point of like, I'm going to go and get a gym membership at the gym down the block so I can shower and reset and keep doing that. I don't know. I think that maybe I kind of bought into the idea of that's like what like the hardcore line cook lifestyle is of doing that. I think that was like my kind of like wake up call. I was like, man, I haven't gone home.
Was there like a crossroads that you met where you wanted to start making that change, where you kind of realized that like, I'm going down a path of somebody that I think I have to be, but you're getting kind of like thoughts of it doesn't feel like the person I need to be?
I think so. I think that it was almost like more of the horror stories that kind of start to get to you, right? Or like you start realizing, and like I was starting to surround myself with, line cooks at like the best restaurants, and I'd hang out with these guys and I would network with them and their friends, and you kind of start to you get to a place where it becomes like your new normal of like, if I'm not doing this, I'm going to miss out on like an opportunity to meet someone I really need to meet, career wise or things like that. And I think that part of it was I have a very close friend who has kind of been dealing with the same kind of thing of just I don't know whether we'd consider it like a coping mechanism or just like a lifestyle, and seeing how they kind of like they were 15 years older than me, give or take, and kind of seeing like not necessarily the wear and tear, but how they explained it to me, and about like the kind of struggles they were facing, whether that was like health or like their physical health or like mental health or just financial health, anything. It kind of was like a wake up kind of call situation for me with that. I hadn't really, I don't think, started to experience anything in terms of like long-term physical detriment or anything, but seeing that and that being brought to my attention, and then kind of, you start to notice it in people. You start to notice it like in the friends that you're holding. You start to notice it in like the people that you're hanging out with, or the people at the places you're hanging out at. I just kept seeing the same kind of like patterns, the same thing over and over and over and over again. And I don't think I really registered it for a while, but did want to kind of, steer clear of that as much as I could.
What did that look like? How do kind of feels like you're maybe like holding up a mirror at some point if you're feeling similar to like the company that you keep?
Oh, absolutely. A lot of it was, I think I was like crossing over a lot of like life-based thresholds all at once. It was like my very early 20s. This was, 6, 7, 8 plus like drinks a night, because like that's what you're supposed to do, right? You're supposed to start and finish the night with a shot of Fernet. You're supposed to go and like crush an aristocrat down at Lucky Dog. You're supposed to do that because that's what being like a cook in New York is. And I think that my I don't know, I guess you just kind of start to, I was crossing the threshold of like being aware of like my own mortality for the first time in my life. So I think I had really realized I was not invincible. I was not doing well. I was not saving any of the money I was working 90 hours a week for. I was not taking care of my health. And everything kind of compiled, and it just, it gets to a point of you don't realize it until like someone points it out to you. I think it's very easy to just be like pretty blissfully unaware of what you look like, what you smell like, how you carry yourself, like what your rituals and your routines become. And until like a friend, like not from New York, came to visit and kind of was like, hey, that's like a lot. That was like a big like wake up call for me, for sure.
I feel like your kind of like bubble that you've created was burst at that point.
To a degree, yeah. I mean, it was very much. I find I sometimes have a habit to go into autopilot on things in life, whether it's work, whether it's routine, whether it's at the time like drinking and stuff. I think that I tend to kind of just make things the new normal because it's very comfortable and it's very easy to just keep doing the same thing over and over again, whether you're like realizing it or not. And so when that happened, it was a big, like, okay, like this is like someone I grew up with. This is someone who's like come out here to visit. This is someone who, was a few years older than me and I like looked up to and that kind of stuff. And I think that was like a big, wow, like this is not normal. I've made this normal. And so kind of starting to make that division, I think, was a big part of it.
What'd the transition out of that look like?
I lean on the defense of immediate gratification, all the time of like, those dishes need to get done. They're done. Now everything looks nice. So there was less of a transition and more of a just like stop. There was no weaning. There was no anything. It was just like, okay, well, that needs to stop now. And that sucked. It's very, it's brutal, man, when like you're just so used to it. It becomes an issue of, how do we become a new normal, for me. So it was very quick and very sudden, at first when I was trying to, stay away from that as much as I possibly could. But it's hard in the industry. There's always a bar open, there's always a restaurant open, or if there isn't, then there's like the bar at your workplace, right? There's a couple 12 packs in the cooler, and so I don't know. I think it really became like a training myself to be aware of that, and it obviously it hasn't been a clean cut, a few years ago. Like I just stopped entirely. I mean, it's been back and forth and up and down, and never as bad as I think it initially was, but it's just I tend to think I have like a pretty addictive personality to whatever it is in general. I think to a degree I'm like addicted to my job. I'm addicted to what I do for a living. I am addicted to I mean, I don't know if it ever goes away, right? But like at the time, very much more, that's what became like the focal point of my life, was like the social drinking aspect. And I tend to do that a lot. I tend to just like, I think I'm a person of extremes. There's never a middle ground for me. It's either I'm like doing something 100%, or I'm just like not doing it and I'm not interested in it.
What did removing that do to you and your circles? If you identified all those things as like networking moments and stuff like that, were you still able to show up in those spaces, or did you have to remove yourself for a bit?
Yeah, I mean, the transition at first was a little easier because I actually had like the support of people in that like essentially I think kind of looked at me as like the younger one who they wanted to get out of that. So at first it felt great, to really be able to just kind of distance myself from it, and again, I super dopamine rush on being able to just say, no, I'm good. I don't want to go out for drinks tonight. I'm going to go home and I'm going to play some video games, or I'm going to go home and I'm going to do this. And then that fear of missing out kicks in, right? And you're like, well, all my friends are here, and they just saw a huge like street party, and now everyone's having fun at that, and for a long time I don't necessarily think I could put myself in those environments where I was, where things were accessible, or where things were easy for me to kind of like fall back into it. Over time, it's been considerably more difficult, just because like life happens and stress happens and that. But I feel very lucky to be able to be now surrounded by people who want that for me and want that success for themselves. I'm not sure where it always comes from, but I think that to a degree I have a good amount of support with doing that, or with not drinking in general. But the circle like definitely changed a lot. A lot of the people that I used to associate very heavily with, we're no longer in contact. At the same time, I've made a lot of new friends. It's been really cool socially and culturally for drinking to become like less of the norm and less of a need to do in the industry. So that's been really helpful, and having like alternatives for people, I think is great. But it's definitely changed my social scene a lot.
What does having support look like? You talk about these people that want it for you. How do they show you that?
There was almost a keen awareness to them that like, I don't know if it's just because they were like further into it, or if they were more accustomed to taking breaks or something like that. But I at the time in New York was very lucky because I was able to kind of, I guess like have them have my back, and when I would slip up or anything like that, they would like fix the mistake with the bartender and stuff like that. It was a lot of like almost like big sibling kind of situation where it's like, oh no, he doesn't want that. It's just a seltzer is fine, or a New York, like a soda water is fine. Um, and so having that helps me a lot. I think as well, like a lot of it was just, the at that point, kind of the health issues start to kick in a little bit. I'm like constantly nauseous. I'm constantly like headachy. I'm constantly like not feeling good. Um, and that's scary. And like um, when you start to really look at yourself in the way of, man, what I'm doing is like hurting me, not just like short term, but long term. Like short term is like, oh, I'm really hungover. I now have to go work this brunch shift for 300, which is every industry person's nightmare. And then long term is like, man, my stomach has not felt good in 2 weeks. And so being able to kind of openly communicate that with people in my circle, and still to this day, has been really, really helpful for me.
What did feeling good feel like? Like how did that show up for you as far as you noticing, wow, it's got less of a hold on me?
I mean, super alien, to be honest with you. Like super, like very, I don't know, it felt very non-natural to feel like that again, to feel like I was like excited about stuff, or to feel like I wasn't hungover, I wasn't headachy, I wasn't just feeling gross all the time. It almost started to feel like something was wrong with me. And I don't know if it was just like fully psychosomatic, or if it was just something that like I didn't know how to understand because it had been so long since I had felt that way. It I mean, it's great, right? It feels great, but it's not like a easy instant transition. At least for me, it was very much like even going, a weekend without drinking, or then a week without drinking, or 2 weeks, or a month. It I think to a degree starts to feel a little bit like, almost like a piece of you is missing, or a facet of your personality is missing. Because I think I drank heavily, like I don't know exactly why, but like very much so to like have fun, and loosen up, and blow off steam after or during the work week, and just kind of like be cool and be that guy. And then it comes back over and over again to like, man, I feel awful. So yeah, I mean, starting to feel normal again and healthy again was a big shake up for me, mentally and physically.
How do you do that now? How do you blow off steam? How do you feel cool? How do you dig into the social stuff?
I'm very lucky now to have like found and like have married my wife, who is an absolute, keystone to, not just like the sobriety thing, but the kind of like the whole of my life, to be honest with you. um, I think that since, especially over the past couple of years, I have felt less and less, uh, of that little voice, that twinge of, uh, well, I'm bored. What do I do? Um, she she is so consciously entertaining, and has really helped me, um, understand maybe the way that I am, and the way that I interact with things and with people, and has given me a really great third person view of myself, that I think has been like really healthy. And she has a very distinct way of communicating things to me, and is incredibly patient, that helps me a lot. And I mean, it's as simple as like her way of like putting things to me is incredibly like streamlined and very like to the point. Like she'll just tell me like, hey, it feels good to feel good, and like little things like that have really like gone a long way with me over the past couple of years. We just celebrated our 1 year wedding anniversary, and so it's been like a really cool time, like getting to know her and having the support network there. I think I've also just kind of really gotten better at self-awareness, and I don't know if it's just like my frontal lobe is fully developed now at 29, but I'm trying to always be conscious of like decisions that I'm making and things that I'm doing. I would much rather now like just go on a walk in the evening or play some Xbox, or I don't know if I've like just grown out the scene or outgrown the scene of like, hey, we just worked 14 hours. Now let's all go out to the bar and just get destroyed. Now it's like, man, we just worked 14 hours. I really want to go home to my wife and I want to go to sleep. It's just a constant, like, conscious effort of trying to do like better for myself. And I've been trying to be a little bit better about realizing that I like deserve that, and I deserve to be healthy, and I deserve to be okay, and that like my wife and my family deserve that from me as well. So it's been like a really cool opportunity to kind of like learn about myself through the lens of others.
Yeah, that's really great. Congrats to you, by the way. That's really big.
Thanks.
And it feels great to hear that stuff from outsiders, from people like our wives and our friends and stuff. And I know exactly how you're feeling. The fact that you can say that stuff to yourself, because it's, I feel like in my early sobriety, I was like, it felt good to hear that I was doing something good from others, but at the same time, I still had like negative self-talk of just like, you don't deserve to say that to yourself yet, because you still kind of have to be like dragged over the coals for, the way that you destroyed your body night after night. But we'll get there, pal. And then eventually you kind of come to this kind of like gentle resting spot where you're able to give yourself that grace, and you're like, no, man, we made these decisions and we're feeling good and we're worthy of feeling good. Like that little phrase that your wife said is like so right. Like it feels good to feel good and you deserve it.
Yeah, I think it's I don't know if it's just like part of like, I don't know, growing up, or if it's just part of everyone's individual kind of journey towards that. But I don't know. I think it's always been my goal to reach some kind of like equilibrium in terms of like the balance of things. And nowadays I'm like working on that equilibrium in regards to work and cooking. And it's definitely like I'm a workaholic, and I don't know if it's just like some of the same habits are being transferred over to something new. But just being aware of it and having other people holding me accountable, but also learning how to like hold myself accountable has been like a big transition that I'm still kind of trying to work through. I think, I downloaded like I forget the name of the app, but like a sobriety app to like just keep track of the days and everything. And it's been such a long time since I've had any kind of drive or like desire to like go out and get drunk, right? And like we got up to like 150 days. I think it's 150 days, but then like, at day 150, I'm at the beach celebrating my anniversary and that kind of stuff. And I just like very casually and very easily just like ordered a beer at lunch. And, had no desire for another one, had no desire to like, oh, now I've had one, like now let's go get way more and let's get a bottle and let's start doing shots, that kind of stuff. It was more of like a celebratory kind of like, hey, here's to us. But I've been, honestly, man, I've been beating myself up over it, just like trying to figure out what that now means. You know, is it the balance of, have I thrown away all 150 of those days? Have I equalized to the point that I can now have like a 4.5% beer and just be fine with it? Or like, what does that mean? I guess I'm just, curious in your experience, what does that kind of situation entail?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess it would kind of falls into the way that you define yourself. I mean, we all kind of like set our own rules, you know. Are you consider yourself a, sober person, alcohol free, sober curious? It's often enough to just kind of like recognize what our relationship to alcohol is. I didn't start the show to profess that everybody should remove alcohol completely the way that I have. It's more of taking inventory and stock of, how do I feel without alcohol? And if you did make the decision to have one beer, like, how did you feel when you reintroduced that in? And it kind of sounds like that's where you're at right now, where it's just like, what does that mean to my story? What does that mean to my path? And, even after the fact, you're kind of like having those questions of just like, where does it fit? And I think like a past version of yourself maybe wouldn't have thought of anything of it. So even in that is like the recognition of growth.
Sure. Yeah, I don't know. I think I don't know if it's like a perfectionist thing or if it's just like the gratification of even just like watching a number go up, right? And just be like, well, that's 150, and celebrating that with people, and then now like making that transition after. It's interesting because I don't think I had or have had any other inklings to like have a drink, but I'm still kind of trying to figure out and understand what that means for me. And I mean, like, I called my wife like before this and was like talking to her about it and just being like, I need to be like 100% honest, like not just with you, but like with myself and everything like that. And I think that I'm still in the process of trying to learn and understand how I use it. There hasn't been any like, well, I've already had one, I might as well have more. Not to say that like I'm cured or anything like that, but more just so that like, am I at a place now where I'm able to enjoy like a standard drink with friends? Am I at the point now where I need to completely stay away from it and completely shy it 100% and not put myself in environments where it would be easier to do that? I mean, obviously, like working in restaurants and bars, it's you're always around it. It's very easy. And I work in a restaurant, 80 plus hours a week. But there's never any desire for it. It's just been an interesting kind of conversation I've been having with myself, since last weekend, of just like trying to figure out what that looks like now,
How's it sitting with you? I mean, does it feel like you want to restart the clock?
I think that it's been sitting with me in a way that like I'm almost like, I don't know, I guess like I'm almost like angry, right, with myself in terms of like, hey man, like, yeah, I mean the first, the 150 days is very easy, to be honest with you. There was never like anything like, I'm not sure how much of it was motivated by again, just like that dopamine hit of, hey, here's 1, 2, 3, and I'm just watching it go up, and the app gives me loads of little badges and celebrations, and maybe it's that, and maybe that works. But it's also, I would say I'm keenly aware of how easy it was for me to just like nonchalantly like order a beer. You know, it was, there was no like, oh, you know, maybe I could have like one, or there was no like conversation between her and I. There was no anything. It was just like, well, I'm on vacation, you know. So I'm keenly aware of that, and working on kind of, I think, processing what that means, and whether that is a response to something, or if that is just like something that I'm okay with doing now. I mean, obviously like reduction has helped a lot in terms of just the sheer volume or lack thereof. But I don't know. I think that like it weighs a lot heavier now, almost more so than it did back in the day, where yeah, everything is very it's weighted a lot more, I think, to me.
Yeah. How do you identify? Like, would you tell people that you were sober, or, how did you describe yourself?
I think that like I often just use it as like, if someone offers me a drink, I kind of just say like, oh, I'm okay, thank you, I don't drink. And then it's easier and easier nowadays, right, to like have an alternative, whether that's just like a soda or a water or a mocktail or something like non-alcoholic. It's, I think, become easier for people to have that to offer to people who don't drink, whether that's like at their home or like at a bar. I do find I really don't put myself out into like bars at all. Maybe subconsciously, maybe intentionally. But I think I always just kind of tell people like, oh, I'm all right, I don't drink, thank you. Or like, oh, sometimes I don't even go that far. Sometimes I'm just like, oh, I'm okay, thanks, I appreciate it, and leave it at that.
Yeah.
I don't know that I have ever or would ever like, champion myself as like this great sober person who doesn't like consume any alcohol ever and that kind of stuff. But at the same time, I don't even know 100% like what, if I maybe I need to do that. Maybe I need to do that as a way to like hold myself accountable, right? Or I think it's easier to get the reputation of, oh, that guy's sober and he doesn't drink any alcohol, because then it gets you into less situations where people are offering you alcohol. Like it's almost like a known thing where it's like, oh, he doesn't drink, so let's not even like offer it to him. I think that becomes a little bit easier to maintain. But in terms of how I describe myself, I don't know. It's like a day by day kind of thing, and it's almost always like a response, not like a prelude to it.
Yeah, I didn't call myself sober for quite a while, just because, my journey started as taking a month off, and I had taken a month off the year before of doing like a sober October, and in the past I'd finish it and then just start drinking again, like not even thinking about it. And then the most recent one in 2017, I came out of it and I like felt better than I ever had, and I just kind of like kept it going. So the language that I was using was almost like a mantra of like, oh, I'm not drinking right now. I didn't know how long I would be saying like right now.
Right.
I was even thinking about some of those like big celebratory moments coming up. I quit in October, so I had like Thanksgiving and Christmas, and then my birthday was around the corner. So like those are all times where like I was a known drinker.
Sure.
And I think because I kind of like lacked my own vocabulary for a while, it was harder for other people to kind of like register how to interact with me. They're just like, do I offer him something? Do I not offer him something? Like,
Right.
how's he living with it? And I didn't really know, because I was just kind of like, I extended the month to another month, and then 2 months became 3.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually I was just like, wow, I surpassed all of these things that I thought I would have a drink during. And
Right.
I did it, and I feel good. Maybe I'm sober. And then at kind of like the 3-month mark, I was like, yeah, maybe we'll try forever. And then forever felt good. So anytime after that, that I had like a thought of like ordering a drink or something like that, I was like, well, would a sober person do that? And my answer was no. And, I was able to just think about it as like, do you want this drink right now or do you want this experience? Because you've had a drink before, but you haven't fully had all of these experiences sober, so why not try them out? And it was just kind of like me testing the waters of like what a sober lifestyle felt like until I went far enough to where like the reward of not drinking so far surpassed what I know drinking would feel like. And I kind of used that to kind of like guide my answer. So it wasn't, I didn't feel like I was chasing numbers, even though I was always kind of like checking in. It was more of those like what once was like a large inventory check-in of myself became like micro check-ins of like if I had that feeling of like, oh, a drink would seem good right now, weigh that against how I would feel tomorrow in the moment, any sense of guilt that I might have,
Right.
versus how I'm kind of like feeling this kind of like new, clean way.
Sure. I think a lot of what I've like struggled with in the past has been almost like finding alternatives for fun or finding time for it's brutally efficient to just take a shot, right? It puts you in a headspace that a lot of times I think like find yourself like yearning for. What in adult life is as like immediate as that is pretty few and far between. So it does, I find for me, take a conscious effort to be like, okay, well, it's a day off. I'm really working in the process now of like trying to involve myself in more things. I'd like to get into some kind of like, let me start playing soccer again. Let me just like find a hobby. I don't have a hobby. I cook at work and I study food and I consume food media and I eat, and that's pretty much everything besides like play some video games. But there's nothing that's like, I don't know, I guess like something that I can look forward to every week. Like, again, maybe soccer's like a great example, but like, every Monday when I'm not working at 3:00, like I go and play soccer, whether it's like in a league or just like a group or a part or whatever. Something like that gives me something to really look forward to other than a day off. Yeah. I think is like kind of what the void I'm trying to fill right now. I think it'll kind of help me a lot. But I'm curious as to what your downtime became like outside of going to the bar.
Yeah, I found running.
Sure.
Which was really great for me because I kind of started running out of spite. I would be one of those guys like after late Saturday night, hard service, going even harder at the bar, waking up at like 10 a.m. on a Sunday and driving to brunch to go have even more drinks and seeing people running, and I kind of had that thought of like, who the fuck do they think they are?
Yeah, very.
So I was like, they're obviously enjoying it, or they wouldn't do it, even in the rain. So like, what is it about it?
Sure.
So I put on some clunky shoes and got out there and ran the slowest mile time that anyone had ever put up. But there was like a tinge of like, oh shit, I did that. So I didn't get like that runner's high.
For sure.
At first, but it was like, oh shit, I did something that was hard.
Yeah.
And then I kept with it, and it became for me something that I really needed, because in the early days I very much was like, oh shit, I did 60 days, oh I did 120 days, and it kind of became that analog tracker for me, where in the first month of sobriety, like I lost weight, like I felt more clear-minded. My eyes weren't glassy when I was in photos. Sure. And then it kind of like plateaus a little bit. You don't get these like huge hits of like, you don't just immediately drop another 30 pounds.
These big changes.
Yeah.
That's like visible evidence.
Yeah. And running became that for me. Actually, I was able to fill that void. It was like, I could accurately tell how I was better day after day, week after week. Mm-hmm. Those became the numbers that I would track. Sure. And when I kind of like poured myself into that, what became something else, or became that time that I would usually spend like drinking or recovering from drinking, that's where my focus went. So I wasn't focused on like how many days it's been since I had a drink anymore. And that kind of allowed like that mantra that I had in my head of like, just don't drink, just became, I don't drink. It became easier to say that because I had moved I was conscious in my efforts elsewhere. And not that I like created that as a distraction to make me not think about it. It's just that I had grown in such a positive way into this new thing that I just wasn't paying attention to, the old game. The same way that like
Right.
you update video games. You're like, yeah, I love that one, but this new one came out and I love this. Why would I go back to that when I have all these new builds,
Right.
new territories and stuff in this game?
I mean, I get it for sure. I think when I left New York, I moved to California for a few weeks in between there, maybe a month in between there. I was just like staying at my dad's house down in Georgia. I had just gone through like and leaving New York, breakup, everything. I was just like, I didn't know who I was. And so I tried to get into running, and I did, but I have a habit of extremes. So my goal was, okay, well, I'm going to lose 40 pounds. I'm going to run a marathon. I'm going to do this, get the Nike Run Club app. I'm like setting all the parameters to be like, well, when is your race? And like, when are you going to do it? I was like, oh, half marathon in 3 weeks. And I think even the app was like, oh, is that right? But I kept doing it, and there was no middle ground. I'm going on 3 runs a day. I'm going to like abuse my body until it hurts because that's what I deserve. Right? That's what I need to do. So my struggle has been, I think the base level of it is like everything in moderation. Whether that is like self-care, whether that's like exercise, whether that is like anything that I'm getting into. I have such a habit of like, I need to be the best at it. I need to be doing this right now. I need to be doing it all the time. I need to define myself by that. Right. So whether that is like cooking or for a very short period of time, running or whatever, like I want to be good at something. And if I'm not good at it or doing a lot of it, I'm not interested in it. So I think my middle ground now is learning that like, it's okay to be okay at stuff as long as you're doing it, right? It's okay to be learning something. It's okay to not be excelling at something all the time. I think that like my concept of balance, my concept of whether that's like work-life balance or balance in any aspect of life, has shifted a lot, and it's very much, I think I've become more aware of the long term in life. It's helped me a lot. It's very easy to fall into the constantly living in the moment thing, and I think that's great. I mean, being present and being aware is a skill that I'm actively trying to learn every day. But it's also okay for me to go like, hey, you know what? Like, or what I'm trying to learn is for me to go like, hey, you know what? Maybe I just need to relax. Maybe I don't need to do anything. Maybe I've earned and deserve like a moment of rest. So that's been like, I don't know, it's been an interesting couple of years kind of learning about myself and the way that I take in the world versus how I think I used to.
Yeah, that's definitely something that I've been working on as well, because the things that I would say to somebody that would be in my exact situation would not always be the same thing that I would say to myself. Like, where's the disconnect there? Like, why not be as gentle to you as you are to others? Why am I deciding to be my toughest critic? Why am I creating a version of myself that can never be pleased by myself when I would do that for somebody else?
Yeah, it's a really tough thing. I mean, I don't think I ever give myself any. I don't ever, I think, give myself any breathing room. I don't think I give myself nearly enough like understanding and enough. I don't know, attention maybe. I think that like I never really like
take a step back as much as I should and just go like, hey, you know what? Like things are okay. Like you're sustainable. You're not like, you're relatively healthy. You're happy with what you're doing. You like the people you work with. You've got like the wife of your dreams. You're living in a great place. The weather's nice today. I think I'm kind of a little bit waiting for that to become inherent more so than like active. And so kind of learning how to kind of do that has been fun, but like one of the most challenging things I think I've ever done, just in terms of accepting like the okayness of today. It's a very standard day today. It's a long work day, and then I'm going to go home and I'm going to have a normal evening, and that's okay. That's actually what I want. But, shifting my perspective on that and learning how to be okay with okay has been, it's been a hard adjustment coming from major extreme to major extreme.
What do you love about yourself?
I don't know. I think I'm a nice person. I think I try my best to like give everyone I possibly can the time of day, and try to make sure that I don't let my bad days affect others and things like that. I don't really know like what I would consider something I really love about myself. I guess I've never really ever been asked that. I think I'm okay at my job. I think I try my best to help others. But I don't know. It's really, I've never really ever thought about it. I think that maybe it's nice that people feel like they can like come to me in a pinch and I can help them get through something, or I can help them with something. But in terms of like myself, I don't really know.
Maybe that's a good starting point for taking a step back and thinking about yourself. Because you were very quick to talk about things you love about your wife, and I'm sure she'd be very quick to talk about things she loves about you. I think it's a good thing to ask yourself.
Yeah, for sure.
Because there's a lot to love.
It's like learning a new language. I think it's just a very I don't know, moment of clarity here.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever thought about that question.
Just takes a little practice.
What do you love about yourself?
I love that I am able to change. I have a lot of men in my life that decided that they were one way and never became anything else, never became open to being something else. And I love that I have become open and that I have become accessible to myself first, but also to others. I love that I've been able to show myself the kindness that I now know I am deserving of, and not always trying to punish the current version of myself for things that maybe the past version of myself have done. And I love that I'm open in knowing that I am not a finished product. I'm somebody who used to need absolute resolution in everything before I could find progress. And I've really come to terms with the fact that progress can mean standing still. Progress can still be made in solitary moments. And that has kind of helped my guiding light. And I love that I'm willing to meet myself where I am the same way that I'm willing to meet others.
It's very healthy
It wasn't
and
always.
very eye-opening, I think, for me. That I don't know, value of self has always been, I think, very hard for me, and I think I have always been taught, obviously, to like, silver linings and like look for the value in others and try to encourage others. But I don't know the last time that I really took a look at myself in like a positive light, and I think that that would help me a lot to kind of just acknowledge improvement and learn from the past without beating myself up over it. And I think that, like, sincerely, that's something I'm going to take into my life going forward, man. So thank you for that.
Of course. Thank you for your time today.
Of course. Thanks, man. It was a great talk.